Hello, and welcome to this episode of Motivated Live Show. I'm Mark Terrell, your host from the Reluctant Leader Academy, and this is one of 7 live shows around the 7-step measure program, which I have written about in my book, which is called Motivated. And I will share with you how you can purchase that book if you want to at the end of the show. But in this part of the show, we are going to, or this show, I should say, which is the third of the 7, is we're going to talk about action, which is the third letter in measure. And it's about doing the right things when we're taking action. So it's not just about the taking action, it's about what do we do to follow up. So let's just talk a little bit about that. You'll see my book there, which you can purchase, as I've mentioned. So action is about taking steps to bring your vision to life, understanding that you've got to do things. Nothing happens without action. But there are certain actions particularly when we're leading a team, that really make a difference. So I've picked one of those things from the action chapter today, which we're going to go through, which is really important. But before I do that, it's really good to remember that when we are leading a team, it is our role to make sure that we are catching people doing things right. One of the things that we probably do too often is just concentrate and look for things that are going wrong, which if we do that and don't catch people doing things right, then we're just going to be made out as someone that is just looking for the bad, not noticing the good. We've got to get that balance right. We've actually got to catch people doing things right far more often than we catch them doing things wrong, because that backs us up when we are in a position where we have to bring someone back on track because we've noticed something isn't right. If we've never told them something was right, then how can we possibly expect them to listen to us or take us seriously? So one thing to remember, catch people doing things right. And this is not just about in a business context, it's about in our lives in general, catch people doing things right, and people really appreciate it. So let's share with you the model that I want to share with you today, and it's the onion model. And this is about attitudes and behaviors. So it follows on from what I just said about the catching people doing things right, is that when things aren't going quite to plan, it's quite tempting, or we can quite easily fall into the mistake of attacking someone's personality. And we don't want to do that, because that isn't going to give us a good result. People aren't going to change their personality. And at the same time, they're not likely to change their values either, because they're ingrained. And it's not for us to get someone to change those two elements. But there are 2 things that we can expect people to do, and that is to change their attitudes and their behaviors. Now, sometimes I'll get questioned on the attitude bit, because people say, well, my attitude's my attitude. Why should I change my attitude? Well, let's just think about what is an attitude. Well, an attitude is something, the way you see something. So it's something that's sort of ingrained in you, but actually it's malleable and can be changed given the right context. So when there's a great story about that Stephen Covey wrote about attitudes, and it's about the guy sat on a train, underground a train in New York, and he sat there, and this stops at a stop, and on comes a gentleman with 3 kids, let's say, and the gentleman sits down, head in his hand, and the 3 kids basically go round the carriage, acting completely unruly, and the guy watches this and says, was thinking, well, why can't he look after his kids and tell them what to do? When the guy got up, he then came over and apologized and said, sorry about my kids, but I've just been told my wife is dying of cancer and I really just don't know what to do. So before he knew that, he was taking an attitude that those kids were acting unruly and that gentleman should have been controlling his kids better. Then he saw there was a completely changed scenario there. realised that there was something going on that he didn't realise. And that's the key thing here. We've got to realise that there are different things going on in everybody's lives. So we've got to make sure that those attitudes that are brought to work can be affected by things outside work. So rather than just accept that someone is acting in this particular way, ask the question, ask, are you okay today? I've noticed you're acting a bit different than normal. Is there anything that I can help with? Because that's one of our roles. We've got to notice when people are different, when they're not acting the way they normally do. And if their attitude is wrong, it might be something that's happened in their personal life they haven't shared with anybody, and it's easy to jump to conclusions that person is acting in a particular way because of something. So one of the things that we need to do is ask good questions around what's happening at the moment for you. So that's a bit about attitudes. And then behaviours are always changeable. We can change our behaviours if we choose to. And clearly there's two things that come up. If something is not being done properly, then it's either a won't do or a can't do. So a can't do is a skills issue. So they haven't got the skills to do it, so they aren't able to do it. It might be that they're not able to use a particular piece of machinery or something that have not been shown properly or whatever it is. So a can't do is about not having the skills and know how to do something. A won't do is very much around having a poor attitude and avoiding doing something just because they don't like doing it or don't want to do it. So it's important to get that right. It's important to understand the difference between attitudes and behaviours, and that we can change them, but we don't. That's as far as we go. So that's why we want to remember this scenario, this onion model. We know what happens when we cut too deep into an onion. It basically makes us cry, and we don't want that. So we want to make sure that we keep it to attitudes and behaviours. When we notice those two things aren't right, then we need to pick them up and notice them and ask questions and not assume too much, which is quite easy to do. So I hope that's useful. If you have any comments, I haven't got any comments switched on, I haven't seen it. So if you have any comments, if you catch this on replay, then please feel free to ask any questions around that. So let's just round things off a bit. So that was we were talking about the action chapter in the Motivated book that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. You can buy your copy of the book by going to the reluctantleader.academy website. And if you use coupon code LIVESHOW, you will get free delivery. I will pick up the cost of delivery for you, and I'll get that to you as soon as I can. And that book is available, as I say, from the website. And if you have any queries around what I said today, please feel free to get in touch. But don't forget that you can watch the 2 previous episodes, which cover the M, which is the mirror, and E, which is evaluate, which is the first 2 steps of the M.E.A.S.U.R.E program. And tomorrow, if you tune in, then I'll be talking about the S of the measure, which is systemize, the importance of systemizing everything in our business and how to go about that. So thank you for joining us. I saw a few people that are joining and listening live. Please leave a comment if you've got anything to say or any questions. If not, hopefully you'll join tomorrow. And until tomorrow, I bid you farewell. Have a great day, and I will see you next time.